through literature, film, or other medias. We wear poppies and attend beautiful Remembrance Day assemblies such as this one. Everyone has a surface understanding of the events and the emotional toll of the tragedies of war. But it is not until you experience the memorials and the sites firsthand that I understood beyond the surface. Here at STS, the effort and memorialization of the students lost to the avalanche is admirable. It is through the Forever Woods, the scholarships, pictures, and constant education about the events and the students themselves, and the STS has successfully fostered an eternal memory of these students. The effort and time put into commemorating these 7 students has led to all the students at STS being able to approach a deeper understanding of the event and the impact on the community. Having spent most of my education here at STS, and virtually only knowing this type of memorialization, I then ask myself, and encourage you to ask yourself, how do we commemorate the loss of millions of people? My experience on the Year of History tour this summer challenged me with this question while inspiring me to answer the very question. One of the sites that I found the answer at was the Men in Gate ceremony, which is held every night at 8 p.m. and has been performed every night since 1927. The ceremony includes the playing of the last post and the laying of wreaths in the memory of the fallen. I had the privilege of being one of the students to carry a wreath in honor of our school. Seeing the large crowd of people attending the ceremony truly struck me, that even though the ceremony happened every night and had been happening every night for nearly 100 years, and this many people still came to honor these soldiers. The Triumphal Arch is inscribed with the names of 54,395 Commonwealth soldiers who died in Salient, but whose bodies have not been found or identified. The magnitude of this number was emphasized when we visited the cemeteries, and there were endless rows of graves, knowing not all the soldiers who sacrificed their lives had a grave. As I stood with my friends on a platform overlooking the graves, we realized the cemetery had 3 times the headstones that we have students. This could have been us. By assigning a familiar face to each headstone, they became individuals and given life. At this site, I had the opportunity to present one soldier, thus personalizing my understanding of what I saw and what it meant. My soldier was Thomas Daughtry Anion. He was born July 20th, 1914, and died August 5th, 1944, from injuries sustained in France. Part of the Black Watch Unit, the Royal Highlander Regiment was based out of Montreal, and the husband to Brenda Sykes. A son, a husband, an uncle, a cousin, a friend, a neighbor. Knowing that each headstone represented parents losing a child, a wife losing a husband, a family losing an uncle or a cousin, a friend losing a schoolmate, a community losing a neighbor. That could have been us, our families, our neighbors. That was what made those rows feel endless and made me ask that very question. How do you commemorate the loss of millions of individuals? How do you begin to understand the loss that their loved ones felt? Another site that greatly contributed to me answering my question was the beaches. I learned that attacking from the sea to land is one of the most difficult operations the military can do. This was reinforced by the opportunity our group had to simulate an attack on the beach. No more than 100 meters from the shoreline to the top of the beach. And only 4 of our 30 students made it off the beach. Similar to the soldiers at Dieppe. To imagine that kind of slaughter and sacrifice, and then the ease we now walk that beach, was profound. When I returned to Calgary, I sat with my mom and shared my experiences with her late into the evening. I told her the guilt I felt about not having seen the sites before, that my understanding was so shallow prior to the trip. I told her I felt obligated to take my parents and my sisters to these sites, that I felt the need to educate people with my experiences, recommend a similar trip to anyone that I could, thanking her for making the trip happen, and discuss the question I posed myself, how I was able to answer One of the most vital moments for me on the trip was the night we passed an elderly group doing what looked like a tour. At the back, there was a veteran in a wheelchair. He had landed on Omaha Beach and was there visiting the site he had lost many of his friends. We all wanted to thank him, so we stood in a line and we shook his hand. Can't speak for everybody, but I can say with sincerity that I shook that man's hand a little harder, a little longer, and with a lot more respect, because I had ran those beaches, visited those memorials, stared down endless rows of graves, assigned faces of people I knew to headstones, heard the stories of everyone's chosen soldier, walked the preserved battlelands, and began to deepen my understanding. That I shook that man's hand in such a way that I wanted him to know I would remember.